Hello everybody, this is Cynthia Kane again, and welcome back to our second tutorial for CE820. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can access some different databases to find articles and then also some other items for your topic and subjects that you'll be researching for your online class. Now for this tutorial, and also for a third one, I'm actually here in my home office. And the reason is that I want to show you how you would access electronic resources and databases off campus, because you are online students, and I have a feeling that the majority of you are not actually going to be on campus to do your research. So what I'm going to be doing is showing you how you can find your research and do it a lot more effectively online. Now, if you watched our first tutorial, you'll remember that there are several ways of getting to the library's webpage. For example, we can start with www.emporia.edu, and we can scroll down to the bottom of the ESU webpage, and we can click on the Libraries and Archives tab, and this will take us to the library's webpage. You might also remember that if I just type library.emporia.edu, that will also take me to the library's webpage. So it's whatever you're comfortable and familiar with doing. Well, in our first tutorial, we focused on the Discovery Search tab and also on the Journals tab. And we did that to show you what you could find in terms of items owned by our library, either in print or in electronic form, for books and also for electronic journals. In this tutorial, we're going to be focusing upon the Databases tab. So I'm going to click on that. So what exactly is a database, and why would I use this? Well, at this point, I'm much more focused on finding articles and other resources, hopefully in full text online, that I want to use for a research project or a research paper. And I also want to see if I can figure out a way of citing those resources in the American Psychological Association format, or APA format for short. And I'm going to show you that in this second tutorial. So, at the Databases tab, there are several ways that I could look for a database. I tend to go to All Subjects, and what you'll notice is that we do have a lot of different subject categories because we have a lot of databases through our library's webpage. We're going to start first with databases that are under the subject area of psychology. And by the way, over here you'll see that you can always get in contact with me this way. This would take you to my email address, which you have, and I'll make sure that you have that again. Under this particular tab, there are several databases that relate a little bit more specifically to the field of psychology and to counselor education. The first one I'm going to focus on today, though, is called the PsycInfo database, and a lot of you may have used this or you may have heard of PsycInfo. PsycInfo is a database from the American Psychological Association. Those are the same people that bring us the APA citation style. Now, I wanted to do this off campus because whenever you're searching and you click on a database or electronic resource from our library and you're not actually on the Emporia campus, you're going to get this screen. And all you need to do is just type in your buzz-in username and password. And off campus, that authenticates you as a currently enrolled Emporia State University student. Now, as long as I stay in this browser session and I don't actually exit the search completely, I'm not going to have to sign in again. I can only sign in once, and then I can go from one database to another without having to sign in again. So that's kind of nice. So here we are with the PsycInfo database. At the graduate level, I always go to an advanced search option. And I tend to do that when I just search, period. So why would I do this? Well, the advanced search actually will let you limit and focus your search as narrowly as you need to. PsycInfo is a huge database. It actually goes back to the 1800s, so it's really important to know how to narrow and focus a search so that you're getting exactly what you need. Now, there are some different ways that I can search in PsycInfo. If I just started to type in a word in any of these categories, and I was searching here anywhere, that's literally what is going to happen. And you're going to get results. But the problem is you're not going to get the results that you actually need or that will help you evaluate your research a lot more effectively for your paper or for your project. So I'm going to show you a way that I like to search whenever I'm starting out. We're going to go back up here, and there is a link to click on this page that's called Thesaurus. Now, I'm willing to bet that most of you have used a thesaurus at one time or another when you're writing in Microsoft Word, for example. We know that a thesaurus will help us find different ways of saying a particular word so that we're not using the same word over and over again in our speech or in our writing. A thesaurus in a database works on the very same concept. You can type in your word or type in a phrase that you have in mind, and the thesaurus in a database is going to tell you if that word or that phrase is used in that database. If it isn't, it's going to show you the word or the phrase that is the accepted term in that database to use. In other words, it's going to make your search a lot more effective. I'm going to show you an example. I'm interested in career counseling. So I'm just going to start typing in career counseling and click on Find, because I want to see how this term is used. Now, I really can't tell whether career counseling is used or not. It did come up, so I'm going to click on it. And I'm glad that I did that, because what this is showing me is that counseling is a very broad term that's used in the PsycInfo database. But this also tells me that occupational guidance is actually the term that is used in place of career counseling. So I'm going to click on this. And down here, I'm going to add this to a search I'm going to do in just a second using the word and. And I'll show you what that will do in just a second. So I'm interested in occupational guidance, and I found that that's the term that I have to use in place of career counseling if I'm going through the PsycInfo thesaurus. Let's go back to the thesaurus. Well, I'm a little bit more interested in career counseling or vocational guidance as it applies to military veterans. So let's just type in the word veterans this time. And this tells me, when I click on this term, that military veterans is actually a term that's used. And when I click on this little page here, this tells me just a little bit more information about the term, that it was created in 1973. Military personnel and just personnel are related terms that I could use. So let's click on military veterans, click on the word and add that to the search. So you see now I have occupational guidance and military veterans. The word and is really important here because it's forcing those two terms to be searched together in one search for information on your topic. If you don't use the word and, you're going to get some really weird results. So let's go ahead and just click on search. See if we have any luck with this. And I have a grand total of 20 results. Now, that's the one thing about using the thesaurus on PsycInfo. A thesaurus is very good, but it can also limit your search. I have a feeling that probably, for example, there are more than 20 results that might deal with occupational guidance, career counseling, and veterans. And I'm going to show you in just a second how I would actually explode that search or make that a little bit more broad. But what I wanted to show you here is that with these 20 results, you're going to get a mixture. So for example, this one is called Contextual Career Counseling for Transitioning Military Veterans. That's out of a journal that's called the Journal of Employment Counseling. That was published in June of 2014. That might be a good one for me to take a look at because it's recent and it looks like it focuses very specifically on a topic that I would be interested in. But here's the thing. PsycInfo is not a complete full-text database in and of itself. So in other words, it's what you see is what you get. Record number 4, for example, does have the full text of the article in PDF. So I can click on that full text article, read that, download it, print it out, whatever I need to do. This first article, though, doesn't have a link for a full text. So I need to go to this button that says Journal Linker. And this is going to do a search back kind of in that same Journals tab that we saw in our first tutorial. Now, you see on this screen, this tells me that we were unable to find any links to this item. Essentially, that means that we do not have access to this particular article in print or in electronic form. So, you might remember that we talked about interlibrary loan during our first tutorial. I could click on this link. I can log on to our interlibrary loan system. And what will happen is, since I am already in the PsycInfo database, the PsycInfo database actually will pull in the information about the article. Look at that. I don't have to do anything else here. All I have to do is just click on Submit Request, and that request will be sent for the full text of the article to be sent to my Emporia email address. I would definitely advise you in a summer class, and especially with the summer online class, do your research early. And if you need to start ordering articles through interlibrary loan, start that as soon as you possibly can, because the more access you have and the more articles you have, the better off you're going to be, especially with the summer class that goes really fast. So I'm going to close this tab here and go back to my results with PsycInfo. As I mentioned, I think that probably I can find a few more results. So I'm going to show you even a different way of searching. We're going to clear this form, and we're going to try something now that's called a keyword search. So I'm going to change this search over here. And you notice that I said that I wanted this to be in the abstract. Well, the reason is that now we're going to be doing a more broad keyword search. If I don't limit my keyword search in some way, the keywords are going to be all over the place. In the full text of the article, in the abstract, in the title of a journal, I'm going to get so many results, and it's going to take me a lot longer to go through than to find something that's relevant. So when I do a keyword search, I want to limit my search to those words as they appear in the abstract of an article, the abstract or the summary, and I have a much better chance of finding some articles that are going to be more relevant for my information need. Well, remember we found vocational guidance, which was a thesaurus term. Well, let's just try career counseling as more of a broad keyword term. Career counseling, and let's do veterans. Now, I can do some more limiting here on this page. So, for example, I like to limit my search to what are called peer-reviewed journals. And those are scholarly journals that are reviewed by a board or people who are experts in a particular topic. So when an article is published, you know that it's been reviewed, it's been vetted, and you know that it's going to be of better quality than something that I just might find online, on Google, for example. I could limit my search to certain dates of publication. I generally don't try to do that, though, until I actually do a search first, because if I limit my search by dates, I might limit it a little bit too much. But I do want to do the peer-reviewed. So let's click on search. 16 results. Now, this is very interesting because here are some that might look a little bit more familiar, but I'm getting some that I didn't get before. Now here's one that's called, Do Reactions of Adaptation to Disability Influence the Fluctuation of Future Time Orientation? That may not be all that relevant, although it is talking about veterans, and it's talking about rehabilitation counseling and career-focused planning. And we do have the full text in PDF. I'm going to scroll back up here because I want to show you something that I tend to do whenever I'm researching. Here was that one that we found before in our first search. This time I'm going to click and highlight. And let's see. I think I might highlight this one. And I think I might highlight this one as well. So you might think, well, why are you doing this? Well, the reason is that as long as you're in the PsycInfo database, you can keep doing as many searches as you want. And you can click on the results that look interesting. So essentially what you're doing is saving them to review later on. Even if you don't have the full text available, you might want to take a look at the abstract and see if this is something you would want to track down either in our library or through interlibrary loan. The other reason I did this, though, is that when I go back up here, I now have 3 selected items that I've clicked on. I can also go back to the searches that I've done before, so I could go back to my original search and I could run that again, so I don't have to remember what I typed. But let's click on 3 selected items. Now I have clicked on these items, and at this point I just like a little bit more time to review them. So I am going to go to something called email, and I can actually email these results to myself. If the full text were available for these, I actually could have the full text as well that would be attached. These don't necessarily have that, but I want to show you something here. When I email these results to myself, notice that I have a choice to include the bibliographic citations at the end. So I can actually email these results to myself and have the citations already done in the American Psychological Association format. Now here's a caution though. What you see is what you get. Proofread these references very, very carefully, because you might have to do a little bit of editing to them to get them into the correct and true APA style. So that's just sort of a caution. But I can type in my email address and my name, and I can email these citations to myself. If I just wanted to do the bibliographic citations, I could click on Cite. And I can copy, and then I could paste those citations into a Microsoft Word document or other word processing document. So that would just be for the citations. I haven't really emailed anything else to myself. Well, there are a lot of things that you can do with the PsycInfo database. I encourage you to try your keyword searches, and I also encourage you to try the thesaurus search to find terms that match what you need a little bit more precisely. In reality, we often have to do a mixture of sources or a mixture of different searches to find exactly what we need. So I'm going to close this tab and take this back to the library's web page. Let's go back to databases. I mentioned that there are other databases that may work for your information need. We have one that's actually under the letter S, and it is called SocIndex with full text. This one's a little bit different. Remember, I have not exited my search completely, so I didn't have to sign back in with my BuzzIn username and password. So that's a nice feature that I don't have to do again. I go to an advanced search. I want to try a search again with career counseling and veterans. And remember, we found that vocational guidance was what we had to use with the PsycInfo database. I can go to subject terms. And by the way, SocIndex tends to cover a little bit more of articles and journals in the field of sociology. And so sometimes it's a nice overlap for this class with career counseling and then different topics. If I were to type in career counseling again and click on browse, this is telling me again that I would have to use vocational guidance. And if I were to type in veterans and browse again, this one doesn't really use veterans itself. It tends to use reintegration of veterans, veterans mental health services, social conditions, and so forth. That's not really quite what I want. So I am going to go back over here to an advanced search, and I think what I'm going to do is the same thing that I did in PsycInfo when I limited my search by keywords to the abstract of articles. Let's do career counseling. And veterans. Remember, we're keeping the word "and" because we want those terms together in the same search for information. That one looks familiar, but here's one that's called UCLA's Career Counseling Center. Now notice something over here though. This was published in September of 1988. I am a huge believer in looking when articles were actually published because that has a key factor on your information need. You may need articles that are a little bit older but on the other hand, you might need some that are a little bit more recent. So let's go back on this one. We've seen this one before. Now remember, we were looking at subject terms earlier. Here's another way you can make subject terms work for you though. Let's say that you have a search like this and you don't really find a lot of articles. See if you can find the reference to an article that looks really, really interesting for your information need. Click on it. Then look for the thesaurus, or in this case, subject terms that are included in the record. So for example, I have veterans employment. I haven't tried that one. Let's click on that. And this will bring up all of the articles in that specific database that are under that specific linked subject term. So I may be able to find some things here. Now here's an interesting one, for example, work-related disability, veteran status, and poverty, implications for family well-being. That was published in 2011, and it has the PDF full text. So remember, there's usually more than one way that you can make your searching work for you. Try keywords, try subject terms, look for highlighted subject terms in the bibliographic record of an article, and you'll be able to find what you need. This database will do the same thing. You can highlight. I'm going to go to this one here. In this particular instance, I could keep adding articles to a folder in the SocIndex database, and then I could email them to myself with the PDF full text, and I can also do a cite feature for one or more. And then here is the APA citation. But remember, I told you that you have to check. Look at this APA citation. It's not entirely correct because these words, the major words in the title of an article, are capitalized here. That is not the case in APA citation style. The major words are not capitalized in the title of an article, so I would just have to edit that a little bit. I'm going to go back here, hold down my arrow, and go back to A to Z databases. I had one more that I wanted to show you, which is under the letter A. And this one is called Annual Reviews. Now this one is a little bit different. Annual reviews are just that. They are annual publications of articles in a specific field of study, such as psychology, sociology, sciences, what have you. This can be a very good way of finding out a little bit more about career counseling theories. So in other words, if you want background information or theories about career counseling, the annual reviews could help you with that. So one way that I could search is to say that I want to search on the term of career counseling, and I want to look in a specific annual review. You see that we have a lot here to choose from. So let's go to psychology, and we're going to click on search. And you notice that some of these are rather old. We have 1958, 1959. But as I mentioned, you might want to get some background information. So here is an annual review of psychology, volume 38, 1987. And this talks about counseling psychology, theory, research, and practice in career counseling. Now, this was published in 1987. Nevertheless, this could be an excellent seminal article to find out about different theories that are out there. Notice that we have developmental approaches, Super's theory, Holland's theory, career indecision, cognitive approaches in career counseling, and so forth. Again, use annual reviews as a way of finding good background information for different theories, not only in career counseling, but any other type of counseling, rehabilitation counseling, counseling education, and so forth. So that can give you that good background information that you can then apply to more recent articles in your field of study. I hope that this has helped you get a start with different databases. I'm a huge believer in experimenting. Try different searches. If something doesn't work, try another topic, try another term. Look for related terms within subject terms. Look for related terms within the abstract of an article. Just try some different approaches. And as you know, you can always contact me through email, ckane1@emporia.edu, if you have any questions. This is the end of our second tutorial. In our third tutorial, we're going to be looking at some more advanced ways of searching and also covering different help features that we have for APA citation style and also just more help in general. Good luck with your searching.